The teacher's going to show me what it is I'm supposed to be learning here. And then when it's time for a we do, now I know we're going to do it together. I'm not going to be left there hung out to dry on my own. We're going to do something, whatever this new task is, together. And then finally, the you do, the individual turn.
I can hold this up and I can ask the kids, are you ready for this?
Ooh.
Are you ready with the green? Or are we still on yellow for you do? Would you like another, or would you like another we do?
And how are they doing with it to tell you?
They tell you. Yeah. I'll ask them, I'll tell them, do we need another I do? And they'll say, well, half of them will say yes and half of them will say no, and then I know I need to.
Once I'm walking around and checking and making sure the kids are doing well, then we can go to an unaided response.
Text materials, they always provide one example for the kids and then 14 things they have to do on their own, right? So I always check, okay, now that I'm, keeping the I do, we do, you do mantra in my head, I always say, okay, we're going to do a few more together.
I'm wondering how easy it is to do I do, we do, you do with that type of curriculum, because it's not a skill necessarily.
Well, one of the things that is suggested is that you think aloud. Talk out loud. Well, let me see. How am I going to extract this information?
When I call around in the room, or when you tell your partner, you also have to tell why you believe that is the accurate answer.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Think of the difference in rigor between, well, I'm going to bubble in one of these answers and I got a 25% shot at getting it right, to I'm picking this one and I can justify my answer. I can decide and choose a point, and then I can defend that point. And that is the hallmark of an educated person.
I've also noticed that just because I say you do, that doesn't mean I let them go ahead and do A, B, C, and D on their own. Right. That we check in after each one in order to make sure that, yes, they did it and they did it right. So that if there are misunderstandings, we can go back after 5 problems and not after 30.
Once I got the kids practicing, they really have a sense of what the big idea is.
After observing teachers who participate in this, has made me, as a teacher, become more aware of the benefits of doing direct instructions. You're hearing it from my mouth, Tina.
I cannot.
From her mouth to y'all's ears.
Y'all's ears.
What would you do next based on what we have the luxury of looking closely and being able to actively monitor, because we're not responsible for teaching up front. So what would you do? What would your next move be? Irene, what are you teaching today?
We're going to be factoring trinomials, second degree trinomials. Abby, can you give me another pair of factors that make 6? 1. There they are.
Okay, so let's do a little timeout here. You're doing a great job, everybody. So right now, she just moved it from I'm doing all of the modeling, didn't she? And she started pulling the kids in, which turned it into a bit of a you do, right?
I did.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just pointing out. So assume we are up here. What is our next move going to be? What do you think? On the count of 3, and I'm thinking it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. What do you think?
Okay. The constant in a general form is the number on the end. So I'm going to give you, this is general form where this stands for a number, this stands for a number, and I'm going to give you an example right now.
Okay, let's stop right there. When we are giving a clear idea, a clear model, she just said something really important and then just went right on.
I know I did. So, these are the factors of 12, but which pair, when I sum them, is going to give me the 7? And I think to myself, well, 3 and 4, when I add them, give me the 7. So there it is. There are the factors that I need. Taking the square root of that gives me the x and the x. And then I get a 3 and a 4. And I look to the middle term, and that tells me what sign they should get.
So now, you think y'all can do this whole problem and tell your partner each step?
Get it done on paper first, and then tell your partner what you did.
Now this is actually a you do, isn't it, teachers?
what's okay. Take a look at what you've got. Point to your like terms, the middle number by putting those like terms together. Show them how you like your like terms.
Yeah, I forgot to simplify.
That means that Lily told Micah, so Lily.
I looked at the sign before the middle term, and I determined that because it was a subtraction sign, that meant that we were going to subtract.
How many people agree with her on that? Mm-hmm. So Irene, let's talk about what you thought about your lesson.
They actually were doing the teaching themselves and talking themselves, we would have found out that 50% of that class time was them talking.
Yes.
It's like, I'm not used to them talking 50% of the time. I'm used to them talking a little bit.
Of course, we'll have the teacher do all the work, but once they get hooked on the we do piece, once they get hooked on being actively engaged, then actually they would much rather do it themselves.
Everything can be a we do. From start to finish, every teaching moment can be a we do, where they're doing the teaching themselves, where they're doing all the work themselves.
Despite the fact that she was trying to tell them to do it for them.
Yeah.
I
I keep wanting to bring it back to, I'm showing you and I'm doing the work and
I can explain it because I understand it.
And you kept telling them to do the work and them to do the work.
Kirsten and I were just telling each other in your class, look at all these kids. They are straining to see what you're doing. There was not one of them spacing out.
This is kind of the jewel of the class,
Yes.
you said, and the other classes maybe aren't as on top of things. So doing this with them, have you noticed a difference?
What I found out was when the administrators came through and I was doing this, that it was working just as well with the other kids, the lower kids or the struggling math students.
They have a high confidence in knowing, I don't know it, she's going to tell me and I'll get it.
When the whole district office walked out of my classroom, they were like, wow, everybody was on task, and this was first period, and they should have been asleep.
Does it work for you in a bigger math class, because I've only taught smaller math classes, to have them chorally tell you what to write?
Yeah, oh yeah, they could do it. That class in particular.
Yeah, you could even just say, what goes here?
That's a great idea. I'll try it.
You said you were tethered to the overhead, and that you wanted to get away as, cut the cord, so to speak. And you certainly did that today because you were out and about for 9 or 10 times away from the front of that overhead, because the overhead is a safe base. And they did come to a common understanding of trinomials and binomials. And I myself was going, oh, I think I got that. And I'm supposed to tell it.
I know, right?
It lends itself to participation, thinking, doing, and having a little fun and not feeling like they just have to sit there with their hands in their lap. So,
And have you noticed
works.
a difference in...
Let's change think to agree, to decided, to determined, to concluded. So, the kids start using alternate academic language, and they can do that in your math class. My partner and I agreed that in terms of going from trinomial to binomial and back. There is a systematic way to do that. Anita Archer and Mary Gleason wrote a wonderful book in the 80s. It's a whole series, actually, called Skills for School Success. RCRC comes from that. So why don't you, each one of you, for just 1 minute, 60 seconds, you do your own little text walk privately. Just flip through.
This is so cool because this is like the Hajj and the Jihad. That's
Yes.
so current.
A text that is well designed, every element of that, the headings will be clear as to what will follow in that section. The graphic organizers will be clear. The illustrations the photos will be spectacular. But in expository text, it will have the new word, comma, followed by the explanation or definition. Powerful strategic use of expository text that will allow kids to get through, so they don't spend forever trying to figure out what a word means, because they have that strategy.
I mean, this whole chapter is about 10 things we're going to learn. And you know, if you look through if you go through them, we're going to learn about the background, we're going to learn about this. I mean, it cuts it down to just a little bit.
Here's what we know now from the research on reading comprehension. Reading it the first time is not enough.
My idea is that you read it last. You're going to be getting enough information from all these subtitles and all these pictures. You're going to start getting the big picture.
You could introduce it the day before, and I'm a big fan of warm-ups because
Right.
at the beginning of a class, I like
Right.
them. So you could introduce it, and then the next day, hopefully they remember.
2 months from now, they will be able to give you a good amount of information by just looking at this star.
That's correct.
Conclusion for me, I am definitely going to go back to that paper that I was using up until 2 chapters ago that says to write the headings down, that says to tell me what's happening in the graphic, that, I mean, now I thought it was valuable, and now I know it was really valuable.
Really valuable.